presidential election in America since and including George Washington has been won by the candidate with the most British and French royal genes. Of the 42 presidents up to Bill Clinton, 33 have been related to two people: Alfred the Great, King of England, and Charlemagne, the most famous monarch of France. And so it goes. 19 of the presidents are related to England's Edward III, who has 2,000 blood connections to Prince Charles. George Bush and Barbara Bush are of the same bloodline, the Pierce bloodline, which changed its name from Percy when it crossed the Atlantic.
She's
Percy
also
today
Aleister Crowley's
remains one of the
daughter.
most aristocratic families of Britain. I was amazed in the selection of 2000 to see that Burke's Peerage, a very prestigious genealogical publication in England, predicted that George W. Bush would be president. They said they could say this with certainty because although Al Gore was also related to the British royals, the Windsors, the Bush family was more closely related to the Windsors, and therefore he would get the presidency. And sure enough, after they stopped the recount in Florida, which we now know was won by Al Gore,
See my video series,
the
The Day
Supreme Court
Democracy
appointed
Died.
George W. Bush as president, so Burke's Peerage prediction turned out to be true.
Selections,
So we find
2000
out
selections.
that Gore and Bush, John Kerry, Dick Cheney, they're all related. They're all of the same bloodline. But I'm sure most people are going, well, at least you can say that Barack Hussein Obama is not part of that bloodline, but you'd be wrong. According to Lynn Cheney, the wife of Dick Cheney, as she researched her family's background, she found that Barack Obama is an eighth cousin to Dick Cheney. He is a descendant of Maureen Duval, a French Huguenot whose son married the granddaughter of a Richard Cheney who had arrived in Maryland in the late 1650s from England. Now, I realize that you can put forth the argument that if you go far enough back, we're all related to Methuselah, or we're all related to Adam, so everybody can be related to everybody else. But this only goes back to 1650, and the odds, what are the odds that of the same bloodline, you get the Gores, the John Kerrys, the Bushes, the Barack Obamas? These are the only ones that get to run and be president of the United States. The Chicago Sun-Times reported that both Obama and Cheney are blood relations to the Bush family, so they're all related. According to the paper, George W. Bush and Obama are 10th cousins once removed. They're linked through a 17th century Massachusetts couple, Sarah Sewell and Samuel Hinckley. Hinckley is a distant relative of George Herbert Walker Bush's close friend, John Warnock Hinckley, whose son, John Warnock Hinckley Jr., was the person who has been stated as the man who shot Ronald Reagan in 1981. Does that sound a little incestuous to you, that they're all involved and they're all related? Then that brings us to how come we don't know any of this stuff, and that's because the mass media in this country today has devolved down to about 6 major corporations. Here we see Time Warner, AOL, and Disney. And you can see all of the books, newspapers, TV shows, magazines that these 2 corporations control, and then you've got Vivendi, Universal, Viacom, News Corporation, and Bertelsmann AG. Bertelsmann AG is a German company privately held by a family in Germany. During the war, Bertelsmann was the largest publisher of Nazi propaganda for the German Wehrmacht, for the military. And today, it's the largest publisher in the English language. It controls most of the major publishers in the United States. This should be cause for concern, but it's not, because most people don't even know about it, because they control everything we see and hear. Today, according to studies by Project Censor, we find that the largest media companies are interconnected by common owners and interlocking board members. This is why that we are not getting any independent news. In fact, most of the TV networks now have pooled their resources, and they have one camera crew go and record something, and then each network, each station airs it as though it's their program, but it's all homogenized and it's all government guaranteed. Not only that, but here just recently, President Obama did away with the policies that you could not use tax money to disseminate government propaganda as news. Now the military, the CIA, the NSA can now use your tax money to propagandize you and tell you things that they want you to hear in the way that they want you to hear it. For example, in September the 12th, 2009, an estimated 2 million Americans marched on Washington, upset and angry over Obamacare and over the wars in Iraq and in Afghanistan. But you didn't get to hear about it, did you? Because nobody reported on it. None of the major media would actually report on it. The New York Times, Washington Post had a few small stories saying several 100,000, but you can see from this picture they filled Pennsylvania Avenue. And yet think back to when the Million Man March on Washington. That got news coverage for a week or more. But 2 million Americans march on Washington and it doesn't even get covered. Folks, that is very tight control over the news media.